The office was very quiet. It was 10:30 at night. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. I was the only person left in the big room. The only sound was the soft humming of the air conditioner and the clicking of my fingers on the computer keyboard. My name is David. I work in a busy office in the center of the city. Usually, I finish work at 5 p.m., but this week was different. We had a big project to finish. My boss wanted everything to be perfect, so I stayed late, very late. I looked at the clock on my computer screen. The bright white numbers said 10:32 p.m. My eyes felt tired and heavy. My back was sore from sitting in the same chair all day. I rubbed my eyes and took a deep breath. Almost done, I whispered to myself. The sound of my own voice seemed loud in the empty office. I checked my work one last time. I saved the document. I closed the computer programs. Finally, the screen went black. The feeling of finishing a hard job is always good, but tonight I was just too tired to feel happy. I just wanted to go home. I wanted to take a warm shower, eat some hot food, and sleep in my comfortable bed. I stood up and stretched my arms high above my head. I walked over to the large window. The city outside was beautiful at night. I could see hundreds of yellow and white lights shining from other tall buildings. Down on the street, the cars looked like tiny moving toys with red and white lights. Suddenly, I remembered something. The buses. I quickly pulled my mobile phone out of my pocket. I checked the bus schedule application. My heart started beating faster. The last bus to my neighborhood leaves at 10:45 p.m. I looked at the time again. It was 10:37 p.m. I only had 8 minutes to catch the last bus. If I missed it, I would have a big problem. Taxis are very expensive late at night, and my home is too far for a quick walk. Panic set in. I grabbed my bag from the floor. I quickly pushed my laptop inside. I did not fold my jacket. I just pushed it into the bag too. I zipped the bag closed, turned off the desk light, and ran toward the door. I ran down the long hallway. The carpet was soft, so my footsteps were quiet. I pushed the button for the elevator. I waited. 10 seconds passed. 20 seconds passed. Come on, I said quietly, tapping my foot on the floor. The elevator was taking too long. It was on the top floor and moving down slowly. I could not wait. I looked at the green exit sign above the stairs. I pushed the heavy stairwell door open and started running down the stairs. My office was on the 6th floor. Clack, clack, clack. My shoes made loud noises on the hard steps. I held the handrail so I would not fall. I was breathing heavily by the time I reached the 3rd floor. I am not a very fast runner, and my heavy bag was hitting my side with every step. Finally, I reached the ground floor. I pushed the heavy glass doors of the building open and stepped outside into the night air. The air was much colder than I expected. The warm air of the day was completely gone. A cold wind blew past me, making me shiver. I quickly put on my jacket. I looked at my watch. It was 10:42 p.m. I had 3 minutes. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. Usually, it takes me 5 or 6 minutes to walk there. I had to run. I started running down the sidewalk. The streets were mostly empty. The shops were closed and dark. The only light came from the tall street lamps. They made a yellow glow on the gray pavement. I can make it, I thought to myself. I just have to keep moving. My legs felt tired from a long day of work, but the fear of missing the bus kept me moving. I crossed the first street. The traffic light was flashing yellow, so I did not have to stop. I kept running. Then I felt a small drop of water on my face. Then another. I looked up at the sky. There were no stars. The sky was covered in dark gray clouds. It was starting to rain. "Oh no, please, not now," I said aloud. The rain started slowly, but quickly became heavier. The cold drops of water made my hair wet. My clothes started to feel damp and uncomfortable. I hugged my bag tightly to my chest to keep my laptop dry. I ran faster. I crossed the second street. I was almost there. I just had to turn the corner. As I turned the corner, I heard a loud sound. It was the heavy, deep sound of a large engine. I knew that sound. It was the city bus. I ran as fast as I could. I saw the bus stop ahead, and there it was, the big blue and white bus. It was stopped at the station. "Wait!" I yelled, even though I knew the driver could not hear me. I waved my hand in the air. "Please wait." I was 50 meters away, then 40 meters. The doors of the bus hissed and closed. "No, no, no," I panted. I ran harder. My lungs were burning. My legs felt heavy. I was 30 meters away. The bus engine roared loudly. A puff of dark exhaust smoke came out of the back. Slowly, the big tires started to roll. "Hey, stop!" I shouted one last time. It was no use. The bus pulled away from the sidewalk and merged into the street. I slowed down to a walk. I stopped at the bus shelter and leaned against the glass wall, breathing very hard. I watched the two red taillights of the bus slowly drive away down the street. They got smaller and smaller until they disappeared into the rainy night. I had missed it. The last bus was gone. I stood there for a few minutes, trying to catch my breath. The rain was falling steadily now. I stepped under the small roof of the bus shelter to stay dry. It was cold, dark, and empty. I reached into my pocket and took out my phone. I opened the application again, hoping that maybe, just maybe, there was another bus. But the screen showed what I already knew. Next bus, 6 a.m. tomorrow. I felt a heavy feeling in my stomach. It was a mix of sadness, frustration, and extreme tiredness. I had worked so hard all day, and now I was stuck in the city in the rain. I opened my ride-sharing application to see how much a taxi would cost. The screen loaded slowly. When the price finally appeared, my eyes widened. Because it was late and raining, the prices had doubled. It was too much money. I could not spend that much on one ride home. I checked my wallet. I only had a little bit of cash, not enough for a regular taxi either. I looked at the battery icon on my phone. It was red. 7% remaining. "Great," I whispered. "Just great." I put the phone back in my pocket. I had a choice to make. I could wait in the cold bus shelter until morning, or I could walk home. Walking home would take about an hour and a half. It was a long way, especially after a tiring day. But standing in the cold for 7 hours sounded much worse. I took a deep breath of the wet, cold air. I pulled the collar of my jacket up around my neck to keep the wind out. "Okay," I told myself. "Let's go for a walk." I stepped out from under the bus shelter and back onto the wet sidewalk. The rain was not too heavy now. It was a soft, steady drizzle. The city smelled clean. The rain washed away the dust and dirt of the day. I started walking. At first, I felt angry. I kept thinking about the extra work I had to do. I kept thinking about how unfair it was that I missed the bus by only a few seconds. My mind was full of negative thoughts. If my boss had not given me that extra task, I would be home by now. If the elevator had been faster, I would have caught the bus. If I had run a little faster, I would be sitting on a warm seat right now. But as I walked, the rhythm of my footsteps started to calm me down. Step, step, step. The sound of my wet shoes hitting the pavement was steady and peaceful. The city looked very different at this time of night. During the day, these streets were full of noise. People shouting, cars honking their horns, music playing from shops. It was always busy, always moving fast. But now it was empty. It was like the city was sleeping. The tall buildings looked like silent giants resting in the dark. The street lights reflected on the wet road, making the street look like a shiny mirror. After 20 minutes of walking, I left the busy commercial area. I entered a neighborhood with smaller shops and apartments. The rain stopped completely. The clouds began to break apart, and a bright, full moon appeared in the sky. I stopped walking for a moment to look up. The moon was beautiful. It looked like a large, glowing pearl in the dark sky. I realized that I usually do not have time to look at the sky. During the day, I am always rushing. I rush to work, I rush to eat, I rush to go home. I look at my phone or the ground. I never look up. Tonight, because I was forced to walk, I was finally looking around. Maybe this isn't so bad, I thought. The cold air actually felt fresh. It was waking me up. I continued walking. The streets were peaceful. I passed the small bakery. It was closed, but I could smell the warm, sweet smell of fresh bread baking inside. The bakers were already working to prepare for the morning. The smell made me feel hungry, but it also made me feel comfortable. It was a warm, happy smell. About halfway home, I had to walk through a small park. It was a shortcut. The path through the park was dark, lit only by a few small lamps. The trees moved gently in the wind, making a soft, rustling sound. As I walked along the path, I heard a small noise. Meow. I stopped. I listened carefully. Meow. It was a very soft, sad sound. It came from under a wooden bench near the path. I slowly walked toward the bench. The area was dark, so I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight. My battery was at 3%, but I needed to see. I pointed the light under the bench. There, shivering in the cold, was a small cat. It was a stray cat. It had orange and white fur, but it was very dirty and wet from the rain. It looked very young, maybe only a few months old. The cat looked at me with big, round, green eyes. It looked scared, but it also looked hopeful. Meow, it said again, stepping slowly toward the light. I smiled. My heart felt warm. I slowly crouched down so I would not frighten the little animal. Hello there, I said in a soft, gentle voice. What are you doing out here all alone in the dark? The cat stopped and looked at me, tilting its head. I reached out my hand slowly. I let the cat smell my fingers. At first it hesitated. Then it rubbed its small, wet head against my hand. Its fur was cold, but its body was warm. I gently petted the cat's head and back. It started to purr. It was a loud, happy, rumbling sound. You are a friendly little cat, aren't you? I said. I reached into my bag. Sometimes I carry small snacks for work. I felt around in the bottom of my bag. My hand found a small, unopened packet of plain crackers. It was not cat food, but it was all I had. I opened the plastic wrapper. I broke a cracker into tiny pieces and placed them on the dry ground under the bench. The cat immediately started eating. It ate quickly, clearly very hungry. I watched it eat, feeling a strange sense of happiness. 5 minutes ago, I was feeling sorry for myself because I missed a bus, but this little creature was out here every night, alone in the cold, and it was still happy to meet a friend. You are stronger than I am, I told the cat. When the cat finished eating, it rubbed against my leg to say thank you. I gave it one last gentle scratch behind the ears. I have to go home now, I said. Stay safe. I stood up and continued on my path. When I looked back, the cat was sitting under the bench, watching me go. Meeting the little cat made me feel completely different. My tiredness was gone. The heavy, negative feeling in my stomach had disappeared.
I walked out of the park and onto a wider street. I was now only 30 minutes away from my apartment. My stomach made a loud rumbling noise. The smell of the bakery and feeding the cat had reminded me that I hadn't eaten dinner. It was almost midnight. Ahead on the street corner, I saw a bright, warm light. Steam was rising into the cool night air. It was a street food cart. An older man was standing behind the cart. He wore a thick jacket and a warm hat. He was cooking something on a hot metal grill. As I got closer, the smell was amazing. It was the smell of grilled meat, onions, and warm spices. I walked up to the cart. The man smiled at me warmly. He had kind eyes with deep wrinkles around them, showing he had smiled a lot in his life. "Good evening, young man," he said cheerfully. "You are out very late, or very early." I smiled back. "Good evening. Yes, I was working late and missed the last bus." "Ah, that is a tough situation," he nodded kindly. "Walking clears the mind, though, does it not?" "It does," I agreed. "Actually, I am very glad I am walking, but I am also very hungry." The man laughed softly. "Well, you came to the right place. What can I make for you? I have fresh chicken wraps with garlic sauce and hot vegetable soup." "A chicken wrap, please, and maybe some soup to warm up." "Coming right up," he said. I stood by the cart, watching him work. He moved with skill, quickly turning the meat and warming the flatbread. The heat from the grill felt wonderful against my cold hands. "Have you been working here a long time?" I asked. 20 years, he replied, chopping some fresh herbs. "I like the night shift. The city is different at night. The people who are awake at midnight all have interesting stories. Some are returning from hard work, like you. Some are just starting their day. Some are happy, some are lost, but they all get hungry." He placed the warm, wrapped food in my hands and handed me a small paper cup of steaming soup. "That will be $4, he said. I handed him the cash I had in my wallet. "Thank you very much. Have a good night." "You too, my friend. Safe walk home." I ate the food as I walked the final part of my journey. The chicken wrap was delicious. It was hot, flavorful, and incredibly satisfying. The warm soup heated my body from the inside out. I realized that if I had caught the bus, I would never have met the friendly cat, and I would never have tasted this amazing late-night meal. I would have been sitting on a bus, looking at my phone, completely ignoring the world around me. "Have you been working here a long time?" I asked. Finally turned onto my street. I could see my apartment building at the end of the road. My legs were definitely tired now. The bottom of my feet ached, but my mind felt surprisingly calm and clear. I walked up the front steps of my building. I found my keys in my pocket and unlocked the heavy front door. The hallway inside was warm and quiet. I walked up to the second floor and opened the door to my apartment. I stepped inside and turned on the soft lamp in the living room. Everything was exactly as I had left it this morning, but somehow I felt different. I put my heavy bag down on a chair. I took off my wet shoes and my damp jacket. I walked into the kitchen and put the kettle on to boil water for tea. While I waited for the water to boil, I looked out my living room window. The rain had started again, but very gently. The city lights twinkled in the distance. I made a cup of hot chamomile tea. I sat down on my comfortable sofa. I wrapped a warm blanket around my shoulders and took a sip of the tea. The warm mug felt perfect in my hands. I thought about the events of the night. Missing the bus felt like a disaster at first. It felt like the worst possible end to a long, difficult day. I was angry and stressed. I thought the universe was treating me unfairly. But looking back, the long walk home became a special journey. I saw the quiet beauty of the sleeping city. I felt the fresh night rain and the cold, clean air. I shared a quiet moment with a small, lonely animal who just wanted a friend. I had a pleasant conversation with a hardworking stranger and ate a delicious, warm meal on a quiet street corner. None of these things would have happened if I had been on time. Sometimes life forces us to slow down. We make plans, we watch the clock, and we rush to meet our schedules. We become so focused on getting to the destination that we forget to experience the journey. Tonight, the missed bus was a gift. It was an opportunity to step out of my daily routine. It forced me to put my phone away, lift my head, and notice the world around me. It reminded me that even in moments of frustration, there is always something beautiful or meaningful to discover if we just look for it. I finished my tea and placed the empty cup on the table. My eyes were heavy, and I was ready for a deep, peaceful sleep. I smiled to myself as I turned off the lamp. Tomorrow, I will probably catch the bus again. I will probably rush to work and worry about deadlines and projects. That is a normal part of daily life. But tonight, I learned a lesson I will not forget. Sometimes the wrong path leads to exactly what you need. And sometimes a long walk in the rain is the best way to find your way home.